What's up, guys? Today I'm coming to you live from my garage in front of my built 4Runner, and I wanted to talk to you guys about building your Toyota or IFS rigs for rock crawling. I've worked in the aftermarket off-road industry for 6 years, since 2019, working for 4 Wheel Parts and multiple other companies. Currently reside in Vegas, and I do a lot of wheeling. So what I want to talk to you guys about is what it takes to get your Toyota or IFS rig to a fun spot to where you can do a lot of off-roading and have a good time. I'm going to go through the breakdown of what it takes and kind of like from stock to, you know, fully built, what that looks like. Maybe go over a little bit of pricing, but mostly what it kind of takes and what you can potentially do with, you know, certain setups that you can is most likely that people do on their vehicle. So I have a list. We're going to break it down. We're going to get into it and check it out. Oh shit, I kind of touched it. So anyways, I kind of touched the board, but so we're going to start out, like I said, with stock, and we're going to work our way up. This is just part of the list. I am going to be using a trail rated system. The standard trail rated system is 1 through 10. I am going off of specifically the Winter 4x4 Jamboree, which is in Sand Hollow. It's our local trail, it's the best trail system, honestly, I think in America. I think a lot of people would agree with me. Those are some of the best trails here in America. So they have an event that they put on in January every year, Winter 4x4 Jamboree, and they have a trail rating system 1 through 10. And so I'm going to be going based off of theirs. So we're going to get into it. And so everything that I'm referencing is from that. I know Onyx and like Trails Off-Road and some other apps have their own trail rating system. So, and I don't quite agree with it. I think one of them does like 1 through 5, which is kind of confusing. Maybe it's just supposed to be 1 through 10, but whatever. But so we're going to use that just because that's what I'm familiar with, and I feel like that's what most people are familiar with, and we're going to go from there. Starting off is stock with your Toyota. Now, most of those vehicles you can fit up to a 33. Now, I'm not saying that that's perfect. People that do it, you might have to do some cutting and stuff like that, but you can fit a 33 on most stock IFS rigs, depending on wheel offset, stuff like that. And typically with that sort of setup, you're going to be running a 1 to 3 rated trail. So that's typically what you would consider, or most people would reference as like a fire road. So it's gravel roads. There may be some dips, divots. You might have a couple like little optional, going through some washes or something like that. And so you can expect to be able to handle that pretty well. It's not requiring lockers typically. If you're in like a muddy area or if it's really wet, maybe you do need something like that. The TRD Pros, they come with lockers. You can be good in that sense, but most people, if you have like an SR5, or say if you have a base level Ranger or something like that, not a ZR2 Bison or something like that, you can do these trails pretty fine. I mean, you don't necessarily even need 33s. You can just do these trails. After that, we're going to go to a most common for IFS vehicles is to immediately go to a 2.5 to 3 inch lift. This is where a lot of people stop as well, just because a lot of times this achieves that look that everyone's going for. And I've experienced this when people come into whatever business that I'm working at and we're upfitting vehicles, they just want it to look mean. So typically we'll get them to this 2.5 to 3 inch lift pretty easily. Usually installed, I want to say, with lift kit, wheels, tires, you're usually around $5,000 probably, just depending on the area where you're at least here in Vegas you are. I'm not going to go over the shock manufacturers because there are so many. Fox, King, Bilstein, ADS, Radflow, the list just keeps going on. So those are the major ones, at least here in the US. Dobinson's a good one too. People like a lot, at least for the Toyota stuff. But pick your favorite, go from there. Most stuff out of the box is going to be great as far as tuning. A lot of it either comes preset or you can get it with the clickers. It's up to you. I got mine with the clickers. Icons, that's another company that's pretty popular as well. So it's just kind of personal preference, what's your pocketbook open to, and go from there. Most everything out of the box is going to be great, and typically if you move on to the next step, then you're going to be worried about tuning in the shocks. So we're not going to worry about that now. But this is a good size, and most people will go up to 33s at this point just because you don't necessarily have to cut anything to make them fit. But at this lift height, you can go up to a 35, which I would highly recommend. If you want to start getting into off-roading heavily and specifically rock crawling, the bigger tire size that you can run, the better results that you're going to have when going off-road. You know, you're going over an obstacle. Lift height isn't always the best because you can get high as hell, and sure, it's tall. You're not going to maybe scrape your belly, but if your tires are tiny, you're not going to be able to get over certain obstacles. So I feel like in rock crawling, especially, the bigger tire that you have, the easier it is to get over most obstacles. And then also, if you, and we'll touch on it too, if you're wanting to do like any pre-running or something like that, having a bigger tire as well helps get you through those whoops too. So being small can be good in some sense, especially if you're a lightweight vehicle and, you know, maybe the rocks or the whoops aren't as tall, so it can help you out there. But as you get more sort of serious about it, the bigger the tire, the better of a time you're going to have, or at least easier of a time you're going to have. Anyways, so the 2 to 3.5 inch lift is pretty standard. Like I said, you can fit 35s. As far as the Winter 4x4 Jamboree trail rating is concerned, they mention 35s at the trail rated 7. I would say also on their rating, they don't mention that you need lockers until you're at a 4, and which is probably true. So at a 4, you would at least need one locker, and then they kind of like instigate that you need more lockers as you go on. A 7 is a pretty high rated trail. I mean, out of 10, you're doing pretty good. And with a 35, I mean, they recommend that for Jeeps and stuff like that as well. So obviously this isn't just pertaining to IFS vehicles. But with the 2.5 inch lift, 3 inch lift, I feel like there's a lot of potential that people don't go for that you could be doing that gets you out on the trail. Some of the most common things that you can do with this lift kit to make sure that you're successful in rock crawling, especially with fitting tires, is going to be a body mount chop. So this is essentially where most body mount chops are curved, and so or body mounts are curved anyways, so they cut it to where it's straight, and then so that way when the wheel turns in and the tire turns in, it's not contacting that body mount. So they cut it, take a big chunk of it out, weld in a straight plate, paint it black, call it good, send it out, and you're good to go. So you can fit those larger tire sizes. Next kit would be a C4 35 inch trim kit. This is really good option, especially if you have a 5th gen or 3rd gen 4Runner. I don't believe they offer it for anything else, but it replaces the body mount itself, and then they also give you a template to cut your plastics. So it's really nice that you know what it's going to look like afterwards. Are handy enough, then the trim part itself is easy, and you can have a shop do the weld in the body mount, but you just cut where they say, and you know it's going to look good. The kit itself is about $750 to $800, I believe. So it is a little pricey. Most of that's for the body mount, but otherwise they've done the R&D, show you that you can fit a 35 inch kit, still cycle the suspension and not have any problems. The next recommendation I feel like is a very slept on option, and it's the aftermarket lower control arms from Solo Motorsports or BTF. These two options are box lower control arms, and the Solo moves it 1 inch forward, the ball joint 1 inch forward to give you that tire clearance, and the BTF does a 3/4 of an inch. So not only is it a upgraded box control arm, it incorporates tire clearance for you, and I feel like this is a very slept on option. Not many people run it, and I don't know why, especially if you're trying to get off-road and you already have this kit on there. I feel like this helps you tremendously with fitting a larger tire size, and I wish more people would utilize this option. It's not that expensive, I would say. It's, I think, $1,000 to $1,200 at most, and if you're capable of installing this in your garage, if you're handy at all, I mean, you're just unbolting a couple of bolts and you throw the lower control arm in. Not terribly difficult. You will have to get in alignment afterwards, but like I said, it's not that bad. And I wish more people would use that. Next is the JD Fab Pivot Kit. This kit is about $1,200, I believe, but it is way more labor intensive. So it causes you to cut off all of your lower control arm brackets, take it down to the bare metal of the frame portion, and then you re-weld this kit in. This kit moves the whole lower control arm itself 1 inch forward, and it also has another brace structure that goes all the way around, so it makes the lower end quite a bit stronger and then gives you that inch of clearance. This is a really good option. I do have a couple of friends here that do run this kit, and it's done really well for them. Some of them are running 37s with this 1-inch forward and then just a 2.5-inch kit, and they're successful. They do a lot of, you know, good trails with it. So this is an option, but if you're not a good welder or good at fabbing, you will have to pay to have somebody have this done. So that increases the price of it, which makes it a little bit more harder. So just a thought. And then another more common, I feel like most people probably just do this in general if you're trying to fit bigger tires, is the NorCal mod. Basically, there's a pinch weld on the back side of the body where the tire contacts. You take your angle grinder, you cut a couple slits in it, you knock it back with a hammer, fill it in with silicone, and then you paint over it so it doesn't rust. And you're probably going to do that maybe even with this 33 on this kit, just depending on tire size or wheel offset. So this is very common. I wouldn't be surprised if you have to do it for most things. Just to let you know, you'll probably have to do that. The other thing that I didn't mention on here is a spindle gussets. So that's really popular. Or I know DRT and there's a couple other companies that make a full spindle that you can buy. That is popular, and I feel like if you're doing more fast-paced stuff, going through the whoops, pre-running, stuff like that, then that is more, you would probably need that more for those situations than rock crawling. You're just not seeing the kind of speeds. Rock crawling, we're going slow. Hopefully you're not coming down super hard. Just don't think that's a necessary thing that you need to do right away. That's something that you can at least hold off on. Solo Motorsports does make a one as well that goes with their lower kit, so you can replace that complete uniball or that complete ball joint and go to a uniball, and makes it that much stronger. Lower ball joints aren't that great or well known, at least in the Toyota world, especially for the third gens. So just something to consider. Also, there's a upper control arm gusset kit that I would say almost every company makes. Dirt King, All Pro, Solo, if they make a long travel kit, they probably make an upper control arm gusset kit that, you know, welds in at the ends of the upper control arm bolt, at least for the Toyotas, because they have that such long bolt that goes through there. So that is an option. I don't say you need it, but it is definitely a preventative maintenance thing that will help out, and I would recommend doing it at some point. So, but it's not necessary at the beginning. This is a very slept on, I feel like, category of getting into rock crawling, especially because you can do 7s. If you have lockers front and rear, I know that's an added cost, but if you have lockers, sliders, and skid plates, man, with 35s and most of these modifications, you can go out and have a good time with your friends. You can get into a lot of shit, and just, if you're willing to take some scratches, body damage, you know, a couple dents, ding. I'm not saying you're going to roll your shit, but, you know, obviously I feel like at this point you have the potential to do some fun stuff, and I would encourage you encourage you all to get to this point and just experience what's out there. You will be surprised, and I think you'll have so much fun, and because there's just so much potential. So consider it. We're going to move on to the next phase. All right, so next, after the 2.5 to 3-inch kits, I have the long travel kits, which typically most people, you know, kind of jump into. I will say the reason why I don't touch on like anything above like a 4-inch kit, because typically on the IFS vehicles, after that you're looking at a chop and drop kit, which means you have to cut the lower frame or the frame of the front, and in order to install a cross member that lowers the lower control arm pivot, and you don't really gain too much more ground clearance because that piece itself hangs lower. So if anything above 4 inches for at least IFS vehicles, you're going to do that, and that involves Fords, Chevys, Dodges, Toyotas, almost all that. And especially if you do a 6-inch kit, you're going to have that lower drop member. It's not really advantageous. The only reason you would do that is because you want to run a larger tire, and at that point, my argument is you might as well just cut whatever fenders that you need to fit that tire, because you're going to lose any sort of ground clearance from that drop member that you have to install in order to get that lift. So I don't go that far. Those lifts are null and void to me, especially if you're trying to get into rock crawling. So that's why I don't bring them up. The next would be a long travel kit. So for a long travel kit, at least for the Toyotas, most people, this is for the majority, will fit up to a 37. And then also For as far as a trail rating, you can typically do up to an 8. This varies for both the 37 and the 8s because different people are willing to do different things. But typical kits for a long travel, at least for the Toyota segment, is going to be Total Chaos, Camberg, All Pro Off-Road, LSK, Solo Motorsports, and Wicked Creations. Those are a bunch of the popular ones. I have friends that run probably all of those, to be quite honest, or people I have met at least that run all of those. They all seem to do the same thing. I will say the difference between these kits here will vary between each one. Some of them are tubular lower control arms and some of them are box lower control arms. So you'll just kind of have to look at it. I would also say most long travel kits, though, you will need to pay attention. It almost needs to be a straight lower control arm. A lot of them, some of them, if they're boxed or something like that, they will dip down and come out. That reduces the amount of ground clearance that you're able to get because the lower that becomes your lowest point. So you kind of want to pay attention. I have a friend, Andrew, here in Vegas that has the All Pro long travel kit, the +2 kit. He's running 40s and has cut the inner tubs and stuff like that. He gets great ground clearance because it goes straight out. It's a tubular lower control arm, so just be cognizant if you're thinking of that. If you're just wanting to go through the whoops and do fast stuff, you can have that little cutout because I believe some of that allows you for more shock travel. So, and that's kind of why they do that. But if you're looking to rock crawl, try and get as straight as possible, if not straightened down afterwards, not like a curve. But those are the major kits for that. So one of the big things with long travel is a lot of them are a wider kit. So this is why it gets so much more expensive than that 2.5 to 3 inch kit, because with those solo arms, you can run stock length axles, you can run stock tie rods, steering, all that stuff. You can upgrade them as well to make them stronger if you want to, but it's not mandatory that you go to an aftermarket unit. So with most of these kits, almost all of them are going to be a +2 kit, which requires you to buy new axles, new tie rods, and a lot of people, because they decide to go up to a larger tire size, most Toyotas and other IFS vehicles, the steering rack tends to be the weakest point. That's where it becomes a little bit more expensive as well. So at least in the Toyota world, there are multiple options. You can run you can keep your rack and decide to run it and chance it and just break it and keep spares, and that's good, but you're gonna have to replace stuff. So it's just always something you have to think about. Multiple upgrades for it are to run a Tundra rack, which is a slight upgrade. I wouldn't say it's a great upgrade. It does fit better from what I've seen and been told as far as install. After that, you're going to a LC200 rack, which is, I would say most people continue to run stock. Then some more people try the Tundra rack just because of how easily it installs. After that, it's to the LC is quite a bit harder. So very few people decide to run the LC, but those that do know the difference. And even though it's more expensive and it's a little bit more trying, I do recommend going to it. It is a better unit overall, quite a bit stronger, and to be honest, I don't think it's really that hard. Marlin Crawler sells a nice kit that you can get to retrofit it to your vehicle, and at least the Toyotas, and I think it makes a huge difference. Other than that, if you do decide to stick with a stock rack and chance it, or if you're just trying to go fast and not worry about breaking tie rods, Apex Chassis does make some nice upgraded tie rod ends. They are quite a bit bigger. I don't know what the millimeter size is off the top of my head. That is a definite option, and you could even run those with the previous option as well. Honestly, I would probably do that as an upgrade with the previous option. So even more reason, because those aren't that expensive. I think it's like $350, $380 as an option to add with the other kit sizing. So even more so. Apex Chassis does a good one. Also, when you go up to this long travel kit, you're going to start running into more clearance issues as the tire cycles, as suspension cycles. If you have a Tacoma, and I think maybe the 5th gen 4Runners, DRT makes an inner fender kit you can just bolt in and it works and it makes everything fit just fine. You can definitely do that. Otherwise, you're looking at cutting. I don't remember what the pricing is for the DRT inners, but it is a way cleaner look and it does work very well. Right now, I don't have any inner fenders. or any installed inner fenders. Mine are cut, so you do get dust, debris, stuff like that into the engine bay. It is what it is. If you're trying to be a big boy, run big tires, and do big boy shit, then there are pros and cons and consequences of running that. So you just have to be willing to accept that. As far as the long travel stuff is concerned, these kits typically are +2. I will say they are good kits, and they are definitely worth pursuing. They are quite a bit cheaper. I want to say that these kits run anywhere from, depending on what you do, $4,500 to $7,000, depending on shock options and stuff like that. So that's definitely an option. I did include, this is the kit that I have. I have the Marlin Crawler kit, Marlin Crawler RCLT HD, and I wanted to buy this kit when I bought this truck. I took this truck from completely stock to the Marlin Crawler kit. I have enjoyed it ever since, and I essentially built this truck around this kit. I think it is a big difference. Like I mentioned, with the lower control arms, as you can see here, the arm goes out flat and then comes down. Most of the long travel kits will come down and then over, completely opposite. So this kit is designed to go rock crawling. Comes with lower control arms, upper control arms, and a full fabricated knuckle. A lot of the components are super heavy duty, and they've done a lot of R&D. There's a lot of travel with it still, but it is definitely dedicated for rock crawling. There are some other long travel race kits that you can do. I believe Solo Motorsports makes one. It's like a 4.5 inch over per side, and then it comes with like Dana 44 outside knuckles. I don't only know of a couple people that are running that, but that is another viable kit. Granted, I would probably only run that one for the desert because that's kind of their bread and butter. Other than that, there are a couple other options as far as steering that I mentioned. With the Marlin Crawler kit, you do have to do the LC. As far as I'm aware, I don't know of anybody that doesn't do the LC with the Marlin Crawler kit, so that is an added expense. I believe I paid $770, $800 for the LC 200 rack myself from the dealership, brand new. I didn't buy a used one. They're quite a bit cheaper if you get a used one. I think they're $450 to $600, something like that. But I wanted to buy a brand new one from the dealership off the bat, just to know that it's good. Just have that peace of mind. With a bunch of these other kits, you can decide to not run that. But there's also another option that came into play recently, and that's from Full Flame. He has a swing set kit that is pretty badass. It's just really expensive. It's $8,000. I know there was an Ultra 4 team that ran it this year. I haven't heard any feedback or anything yet, or haven't seen any videos anyways of how they felt about it. I've looked at it extensively from what it is. It's a pretty cool kit. I think it's definitely a resolution to the stock steering rack problem. The steering rack seems to be the weak link of the whole front end. Even though the front differential is an 8 inch, it seems that you can still run 40s, even people running 42s. Very few anyways, I'll say that. Still running that with the stock front end, or at least the front differential, but the steering rack seems to be the weak point. Just be aware that that is the limiting point of this whole design at the moment, not including the less flex. Steering is the limiting factor, so just be prepared for that to be the problem. This seems to be a viable solution. I just don't think it's within the price range of what most people would consider or even want to pursue. So I think most people would just grenade either steering racks or tie rods and continue to go from there until something better comes out, or not something better, but something more cost prohibitive comes out that's not $8,000. Oh, as far as trail rating, you can do up to an 8 with the long travel kits, like I said, depending on how the lower control arm configuration is, and then run 30. Most people run 37s because you do have to do quite a bit of cutting if you decide to go up from there. Granted, 40s are viable, you can do them, but most people don't. Just that's how I'm going off of. With these, there are people that are running 40s. Like most people that, if you are like me, go from stock to Marlin Crawler kit or something like that, and you know that you want to run 40s, you already expect that you're going to have to cut. So 40s are the most liable, or most likely, and then you can run up to an 8 with the long travel kit, I would say. And then also 8s with the Marlin Crawler and race, but you may be able to run up to 9s. That's we're kind of getting into unheard territory as far as IFS stuff is concerned, as at least as far as factory manufacturers. Ultra 4 has IFS and even IRS that's doing great, but that's a completely different story. Those are, you know, completely built. They have Tilton front ends or Triton front ends, whatever they call them. Those are way, way more long travel. They're running 30 series, you know, 300M shafts, stuff like that. So they have quite a bit more flex, and they're just able to do that better. And most of them are running 40s and 42s as well. So that's just a completely different world. We don't really have that luxury with as far as the frame width and stuff like that with these vehicles. I feel like we're starting to get into the limits of what people are willing to push and what has been found. Most people, it seems like running up 240s seems to be a very comfortable option, and I suggest that you do it. It looks badass. You have a better time wheeling. It is a little bit harder, I will say, on the steering. Personally, I have 38s, but if you have the front end or the front locker locked and you're going through an obstacle, depending on how much load is on the front tires, it can be very difficult for steering. So just keep that in mind. You just don't have the pressure there. It's not a completely, I mean, it is a, you know, hydraulic system, but I just don't think the force is there to help you out. Just the steering rack. There's plenty of people that have broken the steering rack and then have decided to go SAS. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. AMG T40R or something like that. I think he broke 2 racks before he went to solid axle swaps because he had the Marlin kit and he goes through the Rubicon and Fordyce and stuff like that. I do think this is a very viable option. You can do so many trails. Going up to an 8 is, I mean, you're running Rubicon, Fordyce, all kinds of stuff. You're doing all those big name trails in your IFS Toyota vehicle and driving to the trail, driving home, having a great time, and nothing's breaking. So other than that, I think I will say that for each of these options, you will have to do longer CVs. So just depending on what width extension you do. So whether it's 2 or 3.5 or 4.5, you will have to buy new CVs. There aren't too many options out there. There's Longfield, which is owned by All Pro or Trail Gear, RCV obviously, and that's who I have, and that's who I would recommend. Another one I can't remember out of Colorado that does it as well, and I don't know what links they make, but typically Longfield and RCV are your big two. A lot of people bitch about the RCV kits. I don't understand why. If you get on a Marlin Crawler forum and you will hear nonstop fucking chirping about breaking boots, and I don't get it. I have had no problems that weren't my own. I will say I initially got the kit, I installed it. Within the first 100 miles, the 2 out of the 4 boots burped, and so I was able to take them out. I know it sounds terrible, but I was able to take them. I had to pull them out, reband them, or re-grease them and reband them, and I've had no problem since. I did tear one boot myself and from wheeling, and that's because a rock got up into it and tore it open. That was my own fault. Otherwise, I don't understand why so many people fucking bitch about broken RCV boots. I daily drive this thing. I had put 12,000 miles on this in a year, from when I installed it till now, and I don't get it. I don't know why everyone having such a problem. I don't know if their control arm length is down further, so they're just consistently, at a lower or a higher pitch of travel, and so it's at a higher angle. I don't know. I just know that I haven't had any issues, thank God, but I don't get it. To me, it doesn't make sense, but I would not steer you away from the RCVs. I would definitely run them. I think they're great. Longfields are newer. I know the Sherpa Motorsports team ran them recently in this last Ultra 4. I don't think they had any issues, and because I believe they're still running them, so that is definitely an option if you want to go that route. But the RCVs are great. I have no problems with them. So, but we're going to get to the next steps, and this is going to be basically where people go just fucking wild. So I'm going to clear the board out and we'll get to it. Okay, so we're getting to the final end of the possible options for your IFS vehicle. This basically takes it away from an IFS vehicle, at least some of these parts. Fabrication intensive process all for most of these, and it's kind of if you just want to be different, or if you were just going for the most outright rock crawling performance that you can. What a lot of people sometimes just straight go to is the solid axle swap, SAS. As far as newer Toyotas, likely kits that you would do are from WFO, Martech, 4-Wheel Underground, or Rockhound Off-Road. Funny enough, I believe all these are in NorCal. Martech's in Carson City, but I believe all of the other ones are in NorCal, which is wild. They're all next to the Rubicon, Ford I, stuff like that, so kind of makes sense. That's for the newer ones. If you have an older Toyota or wanting to do leaf springs, this is all for linked suspension. Most of these are also utilizing a Dana 60 out of an 05 and up Super Duty. But if you're wanting to do a leaf spring suspension, I believe Skies Off-Road, WFO, and there's probably one or two more out there that have a leaf spring suspension. That's less likely the people that are going to run this. So that is going to be, otherwise you're doing your own fabrication as well. So you're just buying parts from like Barnes Off-Road or Rough Stuff or, whatever, and putting pieces together, welding them on your frame, and going from there doing your own link suspension. So figuring it out. But this is almost like the end of the road. I believe doing the SAS is 20 plus grand just for the front, and that's all we're covering today as far as modifications. So it can be pretty expensive. If you're going to do SAS, I assume that you know what you want to do, or you are able and willing to weld a bunch and cut off everything on the front end. You're also serious about rock crawling, because solid axle is the ultimate form of rock crawling, just because the way it moves, stuff like that. That's probably, if you know that that's your end goal, you can just jump from, instead of doing like what I did, jumping from solid axle or from stock to Marlin crawler, you can go from stock to SAS and just, not worry about working your way up and spending, multiple thousands of dollars between each step in between. So just kind of helps. If you know where you want to go, then, this kind of gets you this kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at. Also for steering, a lot of people are going to go full hydraulic. If you're not doing that, then you are going to a swing set, and especially for SAS, you're probably running a FJ steering box. I know Stellar Built likes to run the redhead boxes on their builds. I don't know if people are buying stuff out of junkyards or what else. Obviously I haven't done it myself. It seems to be a really popular option, and then run a steering assist, whether it's PSC, HOW, or third-party ones that make their own RAM assist stuff that you can do. So those are definitely some options. Looking into a lot of fabrication and stuff like that for these. It is probably the ultimate end of rock crawling. Not saying that you can't do that, obviously, but with this you can run whatever tire size you want. For the most part, you're limited by your axle size. The Dana 60s are going to be 35 spline, so those, I think a lot of people run up 43s. I don't really see a reason to run past 43s. I will say most people, even in the buggy world, see a diminishing return after running past 43s. So that's probably going to be your limit. 42s can't lose. So, stick around that size. This can be especially if you're driving to the trail. Otherwise, the only reason I would see you running larger than 43s would be for snow wheeling up in the PNW, or Iceland, Canada, something like that, which I don't think most people are doing. Kind of a very area specific. 42s, 43s, 40s, you're going to be solid in these areas, and those are going to be a great tire size. Obviously you might break through some stuff, but it's going to be some teething pains, learning pains. It's up to you. Otherwise, that's kind of where you go. Some random options that are available to you if you decide to stick with the IFS route. Mitch Made does make a anti-dive delete kit. So essentially you cut off your upper control arm mounts along with where the shock mounts, and he has a kit that you weld onto your frame, and it deletes the anti-dive, which makes it better for going through the whoops and doing desert stuff, fast speed. So that is a really cool option if you don't want to do rock crawling. I know it's kind of late at the end of the video, but that is a really cool option. Also, I don't know if he makes it for the 4Runners, but I know he at least has it for the Tundras. He does have a TTB kit, so you can be a part of the Beam team and run through the whoops, two-wheel drive, and get those whip scissors going. So that's definitely cool. I believe Winky Forerunner is one of them. I don't know if he used the Mitch made kit, but he is definitely a 4th gen at least that has the ATTB kit on it, and that motherfucker sends it all the time. So he's got some big videos on Instagram if you want to check him out. So that's a cool kit. And then also you can do a full 4-wheel drive TTB kit. Boo Built on Instagram has a TTB kit, so that thing's pretty sweet as well. He's got cantilever in the rear also, and that thing's he sends that pretty hard as well. If you wanted to keep full 4-wheel drive, that's something you could do. There is no kit that I know of. I don't know if you can buy plans from him that are available. I know he does try to sell them, so maybe if you hit him up, he can send you some CAD files from Fusion 360 or whatever and help you out. That is an option. Last and not least, portals. So the reason why I left portals at the very end is because you can add portals at any point in this stage. 74 Weld and Werewolf are the main ones that I'm aware of. I don't know if there's any others. I know some people do stuff with like the H1 portals from Jesse Haynes, but that's more so for like We Rock competitions and stuff like that, and just like full tube chassis buggies. But you can do portals at any point in this stage, from stock to TTB, SAS, whatever you want. If you decide to keep do a long travel kit or the 2.5 inch kit, so-called mid travel kits, they make them to where they mount up to the stock ball joints, and you can gain 3.5, I think it's 3.5 lift from just the portals themselves, and then do a nice shock and go from there, and do some really good wheeling, get the portal reduction from there, and then so you don't have to do any gears. But you could also do that at the Marlin Crawler. Dirt Lifestyle Nate has 74 weld portals on his Marlin Crawler kit. Limitless in Arizona has Werewolf portals on his Marlin Crawler kit. So it's definitely out there. You can add portals at almost any point. If you decide to do a solid axle kit and you want to go portals and keep a really low belly height with a lot of down travel, you can add portals to your fucking Daytona 60. So it's kind of a cheat code, because you can add them at almost any point. I will say the Werewolves are a little bit less expensive than the 74 Welds. I believe they're about 14 grand, and the and the 74 Welds are about 20. I know that's kind of fluctuating potentially with price and stuff like that, or with time, and how popular they're getting and stuff like that. So just keep a lookout on those. But yeah, literally at any point you can add portals to all of this. You can even add them to TTBs. It's still a Dana 44 front end, and they still fit up. So it's a little different. I mean, they're running them in they're running portals in TT 6100 desert classes and stuff like that. Granted, some of those are they're made in-house on a CNC machine, but I mean, portals are they're kind of the big thing right now, so it's kind of hard not to ignore. I will say, I'll give my opinion on portals. I don't think portals, to an extent, do take up tire size, but I don't think unless you get to a solid axle point, I don't think they are a big enough thing. My friend Mark, who owns Limitless, has a Lexus GX 470 on the Marlin Crawler kit with Werewolf portals, and he's running 40s, and he is on full hydro steering. That's almost Ultra 4 limit at that point. Like, that is a lot. He has put a lot of R&D, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into that whole front end in Ultra 4, and they're very popular in the 4600 crowd because they're running them on the Broncos. Well, at that point, portals are giving you more ground clearance, but if you look at the race, most of the 4600 cars are running a completely different race than anybody in 4500, 48, or 4400. So they have a completely different track, and you don't really get to see that on TV, unfortunately. I've looked, but the rocks just aren't as big because they're running a 35 in the 4600 class. So I feel like Portals help to an extent if you need ground clearance, but when the rocks get so big that the tires are still too small, it's kind of null and void. It's like you almost still need 40s, 42s, because even in 4500, and I think 3 people finished in 4500 classes last year in Ultra 4 because they wanted more rock section. Only 3 people finished in 4500, and they're allowed to run a 37, a coilover, and a bypass at each corner, which is crazy. And almost all of them are running solid axle. So they're running built rigs, 37s, multiple shocks at each corner, and the only 3 people finished. 4800, they're allowed to run 37s, 2.5-inch shock, no bypass, but they're tube chassis, so they're allowed to beat them up a little bit more. So the weight difference is crazy. So the weight, tire size, it all factors. I think portals matter to a certain point, but when you're getting into rocks that are so big that, especially if you're going to keep the stock steering, that it can't keep up or the weight is just too heavy, and would you rather run portals and 40s, or would you rather run 42s and get that extra clearance just to get over the rock itself? It's I don't know. We're getting into territory that nobody's seen before. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to be a part of it myself. So I think that if you got the balls, fucking do 42s, run the stock steering till it breaks, upgrade to something else, whether it's the full flame, full hydro, or something else like that. I think it'll be badass. Let's just keep pushing the sport. Get out there, have fun, get with your friends. It's just too exciting to not go do stuff and get out there. I just hope that you found this interesting, that you learned some stuff, that you kind of know where you're at, depending on what you want to do, how hardcore of trails that you're wanting to hit. I do think the best bang for your buck is to do the 2.5 to 3 inch lower control arms, do all the armor and shit that you can, upgrade your tie rods, maybe even do the LC, and go from there. I feel like that's like the sweet spot if you're not trying to spend too much money, but you want to get the most bang for your buck. Otherwise, go to, I'm not even sure that Marlin Crawler is the right kit. It is a great kit, don't get me wrong. I love it. I think, honestly, I feel like because I'm willing to cut and for tire size, that it just does so great. I feel like that has brought me so much success on a lot of the trails that I do. So a willingness to cut your fenders, frame, whatever it takes to get a larger tire on there is a big plus. And then, but after that, it's solid axle. I'm sorry, but it's the way of rock crawling, unfortunately. But if you're not doing rock crawling, if you're just trying to go through the desert, go fast, go through the whoops, then stick with something like this, and you're gonna have a great time regardless. 37s are still a really good size, and I don't think you can lose, honestly. Regardless, just get out there and have fun, be with your friends, learn as much as you can, hit the rocks, hit the desert, and just live it up, bro. Like, it's so much fun. Like, I can't tell you how many relationships and stuff that I've built just from me having this vehicle, and like people coming up and talking to me in parking lots and just asking questions, and they're just excited about it because there's finally a fucking Toyota that's not on a 2.5 inches and 33s, in the parking lot, and that's all they do. Like, get out there. It's such a good time. And so I just encourage you to do that, please. And I don't think I'm steering you wrong. So embrace the suck, be willing to cut, take some fucking hits, and have fun, man. See ya.
That driver needs to climb that same driver line. You keep that line right there. Keep coming straight at me. Start going passenger here. Right there. Let's get a passenger together. Two. And run the longer. keep it right here on top of it. If you fall into that hole, it won't go up. So I think you're gonna walk it though. Go on, little passenger.